Strictly Rangers. I'm Jacob Brown, joined here with my dad. You might notice I'm in a different place, but so is my dad, but kind of. I'm in studio, my room, and my dad's in studio, his office. We thought it looked weird if we filmed in the same place, so we just did it like this. I think it looks good, and if you follow the other podcasts, I put the Yankee sign back up. I put it back up. It's a nice decoration, I guess. But we got a lot to talk about today here on this Ranger pod. Rangers, they're out of playoff contention. They've been eliminated from being able to contend. So these last few games don't matter, no matter what happens. But the big elephant in the room is Tom Wilson and what happened in that Capitals and Rangers game. Rangers releasing a statement after, so we'll just go through it. So basically, Tom Wilson committed attempted murder on the ice and went after Artemi Panarin and Pavel Buchnevich. He body slammed Artemi Panarin after. So basically, the series of events: Tom Wilson went after Ryan Strome, Buchnevich went after Wilson after that, and then Panarin went after Wilson. But then Wilson backflipped and body slammed Panarin onto the ice, face slammed him. Helmet was off of Panarin. Then Tom Wilson went over to Buchnevich, who was already down and defenseless, pushed his head into the ice and put his stick around his neck. And no suspension. He got the maximum fine, $5,000 from the NHL player safety, but no suspension because technically this is his first stick violation. So according to the CBA rules, if you don't violate one part of it multiple times, you can't get suspended. So BS rule, but that's the rule. So Dad, this has been a hectic situation around the NHL. What have you thought about the Tom Wilson situation so far?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, Tom Wilson is the really unfortunate reality is that he actually has real talents to bring to the game. He could be really, the modern version of the elite power. He already is an elite power forward. I mean, when he just plays hockey, he can be a dominating force. That said, he's got some things wrong with him. I think ultimately where he's got this kind of Viking berserker gene. There's a code amongst goons, and let's face it, he's a hybrid goon, right? Because he's got some skill here. That you really just don't beat up the guys that aren't fighters. And I think you had the anatomy of the event a little bit wrong there. It started with Wilson having his coincidentally, I don't know if it was intentional, but had his stick under Buchnevich's neck. Buchnevich was completely defenseless. He had his hands on his own stick. And as Buchnevich was falling towards the ice on his knees, in other words, he had nowhere to support himself, Wilson first slammed his head into the ice with the stick under his neck. Then punched Buchnevich. Then Strome jumped on Wilson, and then Panarin jumped on Wilson to get him off of Strome, and then that's when Panarin got ragged all over the place. But whether it's his first or 50th stick offense, wrapping somebody's head around your stick and then slamming their head into the ice kind of goes to the top of the list in terms of offenses. And you and I talked about this last night. There's a bunch of things that he did during that incident that were literally that were criminal acts off the NHL ice, and but this is really a black eye for the NHL. Tom Wilson is maybe irredeemable, but this is a real black eye for the NHL on so many different levels. And then what it really uncovers is the fact that George Parros is in charge of player security. This guy was a pig himself. Right. This guy did one thing. And it's like asking, I mean, it's such an old cliche, but it's not like asking the fox to guard the chicken, the hen house. It's really an absurd reality. And what else would you expect? There's another incident where the NHL just misses the point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the Rangers went along the lines of what you said. They released a statement on all social media through everything. So here's what they said. Quote, the New York Rangers are extremely disappointed. The Capitals forward Tom Wilson was not suspended for his horrifying act of violence last night at Madison Square Garden. Wilson is a repeat offender with a long history of these types of acts, and we find it shocking that the NHL and their Department of Player Safety failed to take the appropriate action and suspend him indefinitely. Wilson's dangerous and reckless actions caused an injury to Artemi Panarin that will prevent him from playing again this season. We view this as a dereliction of duty by NHL head of player safety George Paros and believe he is unfit to continue in his current role, end quote. So that's what they said. They didn't hold anything back. You never see teams in any sport really go after administration in their sports. It really doesn't happen. So the fact that the Rangers do this, they have some big balls. Let's just say that going after them because they're going to be fined pretty heavily for that. But good for them. They should do this. There's no reason why Wilson shouldn't be suspended. You're right about George Paros. He's unfit to do the job. The Rangers agree. And they have the right to say this. And if they get fined for it, Dolan's a billionaire. I think he can afford it. I think he'll be fine. So this is just a really wacky situation, especially for a guy. Again, he's a repeat offender. So whatever clause there is in the CBA that says, "Oh well, you only get suspended if you violate a certain violation," that's BS. I mean, whatever when they do the next CBA, that's got to go away because you could basically say, "Oh well." Let's say the limit is 5 violations on one side and 5 violations on the other. You get 4 out of 5 over here, but you get 1 out of 5 on the other category, and that doesn't equal suspend. Who came up with that rule? So it's ridiculous in of itself. And again, like you said, the biggest point is he would have went to jail in real life. That's assault in real life. You put a stick around someone's neck and you slam them into a hard surface. Let's just say that's off the ice and say, okay, you're on the street in a back alley and you put something around someone's neck and you slam them into the concrete. It's the same exact thing. And then to see Tom Wilson go after the play and brag about it essentially off ice with his equipment off. He's all braggadocious, like, hey, look at me. This was ridiculous. And I just saw this morning on Twitter, Gary Bettman was the one who actually came in and intertwined in the last Tom Wilson suspension. George Paros was not going to suspend Wilson last time. Bettman was the one who had to interject and say he needs a 7-game suspension. So this just proves the last time Wilson got suspended, Paros still was like this. He's completely unfit to do this, and I completely agree with the Rangers and you about that.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, if Batman could have interceded last time, where was he this time? What did he not see again?
Right.
So Paros at the end of the day is clearly unfit for the role. I think just from a pure perspective, just from his own perspective, think about it. This is a guy whose best season offensively as a right winger was 5 goals and 5 assists, and he played like 478 games, I believe, and
Yeah.
had over 1,100 penalty minutes. And he didn't play in 1975, right? So he
Right.
was the definition of a modern day goon in every sense of the word. He's in charge of player safety when in his career, his single mission was to inflict damage that went directly against the idea of player safety.
Right.
And then if you Google George Paros and look for pictures of him, all you'll find is a bunch of pictures with him saying with t-shirts saying violence on them. There's a hat where he says gentlemen enforce violence or something like that. And I'm thinking, the optics on this are horrible. You just signed a $600 million deal with Turner and ESPN. Effectively, they're in business with fucking Walt Disney right now. And this is the image that let's go we're happy that Panarin's not dead, right? And by the way, this idea that it was his first infraction, like, okay, so this is the first time I used a gun, to shoot somebody, therefore it's okay. Like if
Right.
Panarin was I mean, the all the makings were there for Panarin to be catastrophically injured. The fact that it didn't happen is stunning and incredibly fortunate. Uh, but all of that aside, now the other reality here is Bettman is literally in business with Disney. Is this the optics? Is this what he wants the NHL to look like when you're on ESPN and they do a cross promotion with Star Wars and Cinderella and fucking Snow White? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously, it's just stupidity.
No, it really is. And I mean, I didn't even know that stuff about George Parros in terms of the merchandise and the sayings that he's associated with. I mean, I knew he was a goon,
It's
but
not
not
like it's not like it's obscure. It's the first
right.
picture that pops up. I
Right.
mean, there he is with like "I will kill you" paraphernalia, and this is the guy in charge of player safety. I
It's
mean,
almost laughable. I mean, I think, when he was hired, the NHL's argument was, we want someone that did it the right way to be in,
ah,
like that was their way of saying, this makes sense. He was a goon himself. He knows better than anyone what it's like to do the right thing and not do the right thing. Apparently not. You know what? They should have John Scott do it, because John Scott, number one, he's popular. Fans love him. He had that one year where he went to the All-Star game, so it'd be a popular choice fan-wise. But his video about it, he said Tom Wilson crossed a line, and John Scott, his entire career, everyone knows he was a goon. That was his job. So I think that's what the NHL has to do. Not necessarily hire John Scott, but George Parros has to be out the window. But they're not going to do it because the Rangers sent a statement. So I think, honestly, if the Rangers wanted Parros out, maybe they shouldn't have said anything, because now if the NHL gets rid of Parros, it's like, what? Did the NHL just bow down to the New York Rangers? Right. So you got to think about that dynamic too. Do you think that might play into this?
yeah, but the other dynamic here is what this is set the stage for, and a lot of the players have said this, is if the league isn't backing you up, then you as a player and then collectively as a team have to take certain measures. Otherwise, this will continue to happen to your players over the course of time. So you don't want the players in for an incident like this policing themselves. All it will do is will lead to further excess because all bets are off right now. The reality is that if I'm a player, I'm thinking literally short of bringing a shank onto the ice, what the fuck could I possibly do that will be detrimental to my career? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
I mean, literally at this point, you could get off the bench, skate full speed, wait till Wilson's not looking, and literally elbow him in the throat, or take a two-handed whack on the back of his skull, and then I mean, okay, you'll get a fine and a 10-20 game suspension. I mean, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
and Scott said it in his video. He's like, now when you're in a scrum, it basically tells everybody I can punch the star player on the team in the face. I can twist his ankle in a pile up. I can drive my. He said there's no rules because when you ragdoll a Panarin and you've got 70 pounds on, and then you go and preen in the penalty box like you're a big tough dude.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's like
Well,
me
that's
going next door. It's like me going next door to our neighbor and beating the shit out of his 8-year-old. I mean, what the fuck?
yeah.
Who gets any pride out of that?
Right. And that's what Steve Valiquette was alluding to. He texted I think Colton Orr, I think is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was texting him, and he was like, listen, man, if I was on the ice, if I was in the press box, if I was on the bench, Tom Wilson wouldn't have done any of that. And that's
Right.
where this leads into one of our next discuss. And by the way, Valiquette, if you haven't seen it, it's on Twitter. I liked it on the Twitter account at Strictly Sports P. You can go through my likes of Valiquette's. It was like a 2.5 minute a review of what happened. He was more spot on than anyone, I think. He called Tom Wilson an idiot, which was kind of funny because he's like, "Can I even say this on TV?" He talked about Orr, and then he goes into what we're about to talk about here, which is the Rangers need somebody that Tom Wilson would be afraid of, and they don't have that guy. And
I was texting with Steve and Adam, who we do Strictly Hockey with. They're like, "Oh, should have kept Lemieux." No, we shouldn't have. He's also really not that big and kind of overrated, in the fighting area. I don't think Tom Wilson would be scared of Brendan Lemieux. So the Rangers need someone that's like Tom Wilson. Where do you get that? I don't know. But they need somebody because there is nobody on that ice last night or whatever night that was, Monday night, Sunday night, that could have went against Tom Wilson. And that's why Tom Wilson did it. Jacob Trouba was sitting. Chris Kreider was sitting. Keandre Miller, me and you think he's probably a little bit too young to scare Tom Wilson, even though he's way bigger. There's nobody on that ice sheet that could have challenged Tom Wilson. And going into the offseason, the Rangers need to address this somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the premise that there's anyone out there that could scare Tom Wilson. I think he is a beast of a man, and has some, I think, some, to a certain extent, has some just genetic shortcomings that trigger something in his like in the ape portion of his brain where he can't control himself. So I don't think there's very many people that are on that par. There's nobody in the league that I'm aware of that you can just throw out there. Maybe Bufflin is that type of dude.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Well, I mean, I know there's some big players out there, but it's not just height. And you're not going to scare Tom Wilson. What you need is a deterrent out there, and it's not one guy. The deterrent in hockey is not necessarily that the goon is afraid of the goon. None of these guys are afraid of each other. The deterrent is that if you have a goon and they don't have one, Tom Wilson can do what he did the other night, and there's no repercussions for the skilled players on your team, right? So,
Right.
so right now the Rangers, don't have that guy to throw out there to go out and club Backstrom over the fucking head or knee Kuznetsov in the balls in a pile up front, right? Or return the favor and slam his skull into the ice and see if he survives it, right? Like the Rangers don't have that in their DNA. And the question that Bettman has to ask himself is, which NHL do you want? So do you want the one that they've been promoting for the past 25 years, the one without the 1970s version thuggery, or do you want a return to slap shot level bullshit where
Right.
guys are taking two-handed whacks at each other's legs? I mean, that was a different era. And
That's another thing. It reminds me too. Val kept pointing out when people fight in the NHL, it's a mutual thing. You go up to the guy and you're like, "Hey, let's go." And he also said during the fight, you're usually supposed to make sure that nobody's head hits the ice. He's like, you'll notice people will put their hand under somebody's head if they're punt. Did Tom Wilson do any of that? That's exactly what Valquette said.
No, listen, the vast majority of NHL fights are they're statement events.
Right.
They are not. I mean, there's a lot of times there is anger and passion behind them. Sometimes there's real animosity, but there's endless stories of the guys who fight during the game and then literally go out for a beer after the game. Like that's just the culture of the goon world, and it was always that way. And sometime in the past, it was that hey, we need a spark here. They would poke somebody on the bench and go, hey, go start one with that guy. And again, it was entertainment. It was part of the culture of the game. It's really not that anymore. But when there is a fight, typically it's not this. It's not MMA where they're literally trying to murder each other. I mean, this is not no holds barred. There's a structure, a tradition to it. They don't elbow each other. They don't kick each other. I mean, Tom Wilson with 70 odd pounds on Panarin, at least, pulled his hair for Christ's sakes right before he threw him down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something wrong. Bettman should forget George Parros. Parros, at the end of the day, clearly can be overruled because he already has been earlier this year. Bettman not stepping in right now that's the dereliction of duty. It's the NHL. It's not Parros. Paris is clearly useless and brain dead, and has no right to be in the role. But Bettman trumps him and chose not to, and I think that that's a horrible, horrible precedent, as we've said.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So Rangers are playing the Capitals again tonight. We're recording this Wednesday morning, so they're playing them tonight at 7 o'clock on national TV as well on NBC.
Yeah, and so what happens tonight, right? What happens tonight? No, there's been no justice for the Ranger players. This is still a game played by men, and they've got to now police themselves. So, do they have carte blanche to go out there and rape and pillage? I mean,
Seriously.
what is it, Bettman? You know, what brand of NHL hockey do you want?
No, it's true. I mean, and we've heard, are the Rangers going to call up their goon from Hartford? I mean, like, if that happens, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. So, again, I'm really interested to see what happens tonight. It's going to be fun, 7 o'clock, but it's one of the last few games of the Rangers season. So we got to look at this off season. We got to look at some young player development as well. And the Rangers, that's one thing this season. We kind of started the year. What's happening with the young players? Kakko not really scoring, Lafreniere not scoring. We got kind of worried. Hedl as well. He was injured for a little bit after he went on a streak. Now you finish up the season, and we kind of have this holistic view of what's going on. Kakko and Lafreniere and Hedl, when they were put on a line together, ever since that happened, their development doubled in whatever you want to say, in rate or value. It doubled because those guys went from basically not doing anything to when they were put on a line together. I mean, did you see the Kakko and Lafreniere goal from the other night? I mean, that was special. So that's what you want to see. So Kakko finishes the year, or not finishes, but for the most part, 46 games, 9 goals, 8 assists. Still not great, right? You want him to be over 10 goals, but towards the end of the year, he started doing a little bit better. Alexis Lafreniere, total for the year, 53 games, 10 goals, 19 assists. And Filip Hedl.
Wait a minute. Lafreniere had 19 assists?
No, 10 goals, 9 assists. Did I say 19?
Yeah.
That's my bad. And
no.
Yeah, and then Hedl in 39 games, 8 goals, 12 assists. So not great, right? I mean, you're not going to look at that and go, wow. But towards the end of the year, their point total started to go up. I think final 15 games is when Kakko, Lafreniere, Hedl really started to produce again. So if you're going to be happy about something, it's what have you done for me lately? These guys were proving towards the end of the year they were doing it. And Keandre Miller, period, the entire year, he was amazing. So Keandre Miller, I was blown away by. Adam Fox, blown away by. I think he's better than anyone thought he could be. Lindgren showing again with the consistency that he can be a stay-at-home defensive defenseman, sticks up for himself physically. He doesn't do anything wrong. So I think mostly the Rangers were really good this year, player development-wise, with the young guys.
Yeah, and I'll go back to a comment that Larry Brooks made, and I think it was dead on. We lose sight of the fact of the fact that it's not just games played. So, in baseball, if you play 150 games more or 140 games as a young player, that means that you're probably playing the full game the vast majority of the time. You're getting full at bats, right? You're not going to pinch it up 140 times or pinch run or be a defensive replacement. So if you play a full season and we, barring injury, Lafreniere, Hedl, and Kakko played their versions of a full season. They weren't ever scratched, right? So they played a full season. But there's a difference in using baseball and hockey as an example. You can play a full season in hockey and not get the same kind of exposure to opportunity, right? So if you're playing 8, 10, 12, I mean, Quinn made a bunch of public statements this year saying, I wish I would have gotten this guy on more, or I would have played that line more, and some of that is the pressure of wanting to win and getting to the playoffs. And again, I think to a certain extent, the Rangers' success may have actually not catastrophically hurt them, but incrementally hurt the development of those kids. When you pile on all the factors, no training camp. Lafreniere didn't play organized hockey for a really long time. Hedel and Kako lost time last year. They lost time in training camp. A shortened season. So their development is already stunted. And then Quinn plays them 8, 10, 12 minutes a game and plays Zibanejad and Panarin 22 minutes a game. So I'm sorry. That can't be next year. If you want these guys to be part of the mix in a meaningful way, not necessarily next year, but the year after, certainly, when you better be fucking legitimate, then these guys got to play their 15 minutes a game. And it only helps the team. It only helps the team in the long run. So I'm actually really happy with what we saw from them. He'll start to use his body in a meaningful way. He's figuring out that he's an adult and that he's 6'2", 2 something. Kako holding on to the puck, using his hands, great feet that we didn't see last year. Lateral movement was really impressive. Lafreniere was like, wait a minute, I can do this, and started, really contributing. And obviously he was playing on the line with Panarin and Strome at the end there. Zibanejad and Buchnevich. So, no, what was it? What was he playing?
Who are you talking about?
Lafreniere. Yeah, he was playing up with Zibanejad.
When? He's been with Kako and Hedel for a while.
No. He was moved up when Kreider was moved back.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Right. So he's he started playing with a different caliber player, more minutes. You see what happens. Bottom line is they all did well. Fox and Miller, revelations, absolutely. So you can't draw it up any better. How many times have we looked at the Yankees and said, "Oh my God," going back 3-4 years. Oh, look at all these studs, look at all these prospects, and most of them suck balls. Let's look at the Rangers, and they got a crop of young guys that are here, and the crop that's coming that you got to feel really freaking good about.
We didn't even mention Vitaly Kravtsov, who came in and was God, holy crap, he might be better than all of them. I mean, seriously, it's not even an overstatement. He came in and impressed immediately. He looked like an adult.
Yeah, no doubt. And who was he playing with? Rooney and the stick boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that's why,
Well, yeah, Blackwell I think is gone now. He's gone.
There have to be. Look, Rooney and Blackwell are nice pieces on a team that doesn't have enough pieces. But your fourth line next year has to be one of two things. It has to be a vehicle for Barron, Gauthier, and somebody else, right? Maybe some goon lefty that can play the wing. Maybe it's Cooley, the young kid who's 6'3", 215. Maybe he's in the mix. But it's either that or you blow it up, and you go out and you get three guys that have physicality, toughness, and can throw a punch, and that's your fourth line. It's one of those two things. It cannot be the loving the death Blackwell or the gritty Rooney or these afterthought guys. I'm sorry, It can be. Di Giuseppe's not that guy. They need to get real immediately, and that has to be through trades or if it's or they just say, you know what, next year is another development year. We're going to give the fourth line to Barron, Gauthier, and whoever the fuck on the fourth line.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you talk about are they going to win right now? Are they going to not? Next year they're back in the regular division. So Carolina, Philadelphia, well, in order, Carolina, Islanders, Penguins, Capitals, just those four are dangerous. And then you've got Flyers.
We're in with Carolina?
Yeah.
Where have I been?
Yeah, no, we're in with, so they're a guaranteed spot. Boston's in the other division, so we don't have to deal with, so we're doing a 1-for-1 there. So remember, it's the three division teams make the playoffs. And then, so it's 3 and 3 from the two divisions. And then there's 2 wild card teams total. So you're going to have the Hurricanes. You're going to have the Islanders probably. And then you're going to have probably Pittsburgh or us or, so we're not guaranteed the 3. And then in the other division, you have Tampa, Boston probably in, and then you have Florida and you have Toronto and so the Rangers are not guaranteed a spot at all. So maybe they do think this is another development year because we might not be as good as Carolina right now, even if we make some moves. Now, are the Rangers more skilled than some of these teams? Absolutely. I think they have the skill level that's very high, but can they win and win consistently? That's the question. We have no idea yet.
No, we don't. But again, we talked about it earlier. You know, that fourth line can be a development line, but that said, they need some real grit in the top nine as well. It's problematic. It really is, because when you look at those, whatever the top six is right now, it's some combination of and I'm not going in position order, but it's Panarin, Zibanejad, Strome, Kreider, Buchnevich, and is that five?
That's the big five, yeah.
That's a big five.
And then it was Blackwell on the other wing, so he's gonna
exactly. So in that mix, are any of them equipped to play a physical game? Kreider,
I don't know, because it's tough, because you look at Buchnevich, 6'3", 200. He had 20 goals, 25 assists this year. This is his best year by far with us, but he's going to cost a lot of money. So is he the guy you move on? Same thing with Strome. He's right up there with a bunch of superstars, and I know, Dad, whatever, you don't like him so much, but he has 14 goals, 33 assists. I mean, Ryan Strome is right up there with the Kopitars, Patrice Bergeron. He's up there with all those guys. So, but Strome is a little bit tinier, 6'1", 193. He's going to cost a shit ton of money, because right now he's making 5.5. When he's getting his next contract, it's going to be north of 6. So with all the other guys that the Rangers have to keep, they're paying Trouba, they're paying Kreider, they're going to have to pay Igor, they're going to have to pay Fox, they're going to have to pay somebody else. Zibanejad's going to get a contract extension worth more money. So Panarin's $8 million. So a lot of these guys are
Panarin's $11 million.
11. So these guys are getting paid a lot of money, and you still have to pay more guys a lot of money. That might be where you do it and you say, you know what? We have 1 year left on this Strome contract. We know he's going to leave anyway. His value is higher than it's ever going to be right now, unless you get to midway through next season and he's continuing like this. Maybe the Rangers got to offload Strome now, and it's going to hurt. A lot of Ranger fans are not going to like it, but they might have to do it now, because I'd rather keep Buchnevich at 6'3", having the best season he's ever had with us.
Well, it's maybe not even be a question of either or. It could be a question of do you want to do both, right? They're both at their highest value. And listen, I couldn't be happier for Ryan Strome. I think it's a great success story. This is a number 5 overall pick who found his game. He's going to make his money, but it's more about than just the money in this circumstance. It's validation for him, right? He knows he can play in this league, and more power to him. I just don't think, and I've said this a million times, anybody who listens to this pod more than once has heard it. He's not a number 2 center in coming out of the East. He doesn't win faceoffs with any kind of regularity. He has no wall play. He's basically a perimeter player when push comes to shove. And that's great during the regular season. That's why you put up whatever it was, 47 something points this year. Without
I just looked it up. He's tied. He's tied for 25th in scoring in the NHL. So he's top.
Yeah, 25. And then that's without Panarin being there for a while. So those totals would have been up. And again, fantastic for him. He just if only for the practical reasons that you laid out, he has to go, because I would liken him to you and I were both like, no way in hell do we sign Kevin Hayes for $7 million.
Yeah,
right? He's a better version of Kevin Hayes on every level, and I still wouldn't pay him $7 million, $8 million. This is a cap world, so he's not a fit from a physical perspective, winning faceoffs, grit, that type of stuff. He might have the biggest heart in the world. Anybody who jumps on Tom Wilson to get him off one of your players, hey, listen, buy him a beer. You know what I mean? I'm not calling him a coward. I'm not saying he's weak or ineffective. I'm just saying, listen, you need a balls out number 2 center in this league who's not going to get pushed around, who and maybe it's not a skill guy. Maybe it's just a nice physical piece that they put there. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know the league well enough, candidly. Not
Again, though, like that's where I'll butt in and say Tampa doesn't have a very big number 2 center. Their number 1 center is Point, who's not that big, right? So Stamkos is not a center anymore. Look at the Florida Panthers. They have size that surrounds the center. They have Barkov, who's big. After that, Wenberg's not big. Verhage.
Yeah, but you're missing it. It's not just size.
I know it's not
type.
size, but these guys are not physical either. I'm saying the same thing.
No,
so,
but Tampa comes to the table with other physical pieces.
well, that's what I'm saying. So you can keep Strome with physical pieces around him. So you get wingers around him. That's how it works out. So I'm saying if the Rangers keep Strome, they could do that as well. You don't find number 2 centers that score like Strome. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand that, but I don't. What I'm suggesting here is that there isn't that necessarily that big of a need for that kind of guy. I think for that point production in that role, candidly, I'd rather figure out if there's someone that can contribute offensively there. And I don't know who this guy is necessarily. Maybe he doesn't exist. I don't know, but I just know that from practical perspective, you can't afford a $7 million Strome and a $6 million or $7 million Buchnevich. You can't do it. So after next year, both of them, they go from a nice little tidy investment of about $500,000 to about $14 or $15 million. And I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Not in today's economics. Not with a whole boatload of young kids, because it's not just a 1-year deal they're going to sign these guys to. It'll be 2 or 3, which will fuck up the cap for years after that, get them out of the market for players that they really need. And if you think that after the Wilson incident, the JD is not going to go out and find murderers and rapists, you're delusional.
That's a way to put it. Jesus Christ.
That will back. There are going to be massive head rollings on the. I would predict. I don't obviously have any input in this, and maybe I'm 1,000% wrong. I don't know, but look who they drafted this year: Schneider, Cooley, and so forth. Right, big, tough, mean fuckers that play a game with an edge. This is JD's stamp. This is going back to that hybrid mix that the Rangers had 10, 12 years ago and in the 90s, where they could outscore you or punch you in the mouth. And that's what JD's all about. That's where they're going.
Well, I told you last night when I read the statement to you, and I was like, that's non business suit JD coming out.
Yes.
And it got a smile out of you because, you listened to him for years and it's like, oh, he's still there. He's still in there.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. You're right. He's the corporate guy now, right? But he's still the guy that was a psychotic playboy in the 1970s in New York, taking advantage of his fame. And he's still the passionate dude that announced hockey for 20 years as a Rangers broadcaster. I think this brought out a little bit of the monster in him, and I think the Rangers will look a lot different. I think that you're going to see a lot more kind of supplemental pieces, and they might put more emphasis on bringing up the young physical guys.
One thing, do you want to guess Connor McDavid's points this year in 51 games?
51 games. Wow. 84.
93.
What?
31 goals, 62 assists in 51 games.
Wow. All right. I don't have my phone. So what is that? 93 points in how many games?
51.
All right. So if you played 82 games this year, he would have had 150 points. Those are unheard of numbers in modern hockey. Now, who knows if he'll sustain it. That's like saying you got 10 home runs after 20 games, you're going to hit it, 80 home runs.
He would have
But
fucking sustained it. Give me a break. My God.
I think so.
He's,
But
I mean,
it's also not necessarily projectable because next year you go back to, the same shit.
yeah, I
And,
mean, he's facing Ottawa, Vancouver, Calgary,
right.
so it's
teams
not
that really, really struggled.
yeah, but still, I mean, what the fuck? I mean, this is people don't get 90-point seasons in 82 game regular season. I mean, this is ridiculous. Absolutely unreal. So, all right, before we go, season grade for the New York Rangers. I give them a B. Not a B plus. I give them a B.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah, because like a B plus is where you're almost an A. So I don't
Yeah,
think they
you're
were
right.
almost an
You're
A.
right.
And they're not a C because they were a few a game here and there. They may have been still in the playoff race, so I can't give them a C. So some things went better expected, some things didn't. But I don't know. I mean, you look at Lafreniere, you look at Kako, you're optimistic at least. Kraftsoff looked a lot better than I think we thought. Adam Fox blew us away. I mean, just that. I mean, think about that. We went into this season saying, maybe Adam Fox, keep it going. He's a nice puck mover. Put him on the. Now you're like, he might be one of the best puck moving offensive defensemen in the entire league. Like I remember on one of our pods before the season, I was like, man, if he could turn into Cale Makar, he's better than Cale Makar. So Adam Fox was revolutionary this season, and that cannot go unnoticed. And I think Mika Zibanejad starts out the year, and this is where I'm going to talk about things that are calming me going into the next season. Mika Zibanejad started off, wasn't good at all, but then he went back. And this actually, because I remember going into the season thinking I didn't say this out loud, but I said, in reality, Zibanejad really hasn't had a long streak of success. Last year was really the first time that he performed like a superstar. And just like in baseball, I like to see it 2 times in a row. What Zibanejad did this year, it actually proved it even better to me because he started off not so good and then he rebounded and came back and was the same guy as last year. So now it's like, okay, now I know that even if Zibanejad starts off bad, he's going to get back to that guy. And that is who he is because he's proven it now 2 years in a row that that's who he is. Artemi Panarin even, he never had a season like he had with the Rangers before this. I didn't want to say it on a Ranger pod that I was like, well, maybe Panarin won't be like that. Panarin's the same guy. So now we can go in and it's not just, they put up superstar numbers once. They put up superstar numbers twice. So this is a team now that has 2 bona fide superstars. You have budding young stars on the way. You have a number 1 puck moving defenseman in Fox. You have a very physical stay-at-home defenseman with Jacob Trouba, big size. You have Lindgren that's now proven he doesn't make mistakes. There's a lot of guys that proved now 2 times in a row that they can be the guys that we want them to be.
Yeah, you got to feel good. I mean, there's some things about it that you got to question. You look at the point production and goal production of the top guys against the bigger teams this year, and it wasn't necessarily there. I think it's a little bit of an aberration, though. Larry Brooks pointed out that the against Boston and the Islanders that Panarin and Zibanejad were basically absent. But having said that, though, that could just be matchup type things. And he did very well against Washington, Zibanejad did at least. And so I don't know what their actual stats are against the big guys, but Brooks was pointing out that it was less than it was against the also-rans, which is understandable. But again, this is also a function of what we discussed earlier. When your big guys are out there 20 to 22 minutes, the entire onus is on them, and the other team gets into a rhythm of defending against them. If you've got other assets, that third line, whether it was Kako and Hedel and Lafreniere, whatever it was, and Kreider at the end of the year, if they're getting equal minutes, and then the other teams have to spread their spread their defense, so to speak. They
Right.
spread their assets, because you get three. If you get three lines rolling and then the fourth line crunching, that's the dynamic. You cannot keep going back to the well as Quinn does. And Brooks wrote another article, which I thought was interesting. He said that there's like this weird disconnect between Quinn and his elite players in terms of the style that they're playing, and his admonition of them after virtually every game.
Now that's easy to believe. That's very easy to believe.
Yeah, it's like he's like, we don't shoot enough, too much east-west stuff, and blah 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 blah. And then like there's an undercurrent coming back from the players, like there's a reason why we don't shoot all the time. And I don't know who's right or wrong in this equation necessarily, but I'm leaning towards the players a little bit, because it's my sensibility years ago was that Tortorella wasted a lot of talent.
Exactly. To me, if you have superstar, let them do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, seriously, that's what the Oilers let McDavid do. He does whatever the fuck he wants.
Well, the point there is that these guys are, Zibanejad is clearly defensively responsible if he's also entrusted with playing, penalty killing and stuff like that. He's not defensively deficient, and Panarin neither, right? So if there's a style that they prefer playing, it's almost if you want to meat and potatoes from other players. Well, first of all, the Rangers don't have a lot of meat and potato guys, so
right.
This is who they drafted. Figure out how to make that work, and it may not be at critical level right now, but I can tell you right now, if they start off half-assed next year, we've discussed this in the past, Quinn won't make it. If management, because think about the personal dynamic of that. Management is going to have the perspective that, listen, we went out and we got the pieces that we feel make sense here, and this guy can't make it work. Good night. He maybe has 20 games next year. If they're not starting off with 13, 14 wins in those first 20 games with whatever personnel he has, he's done, because there's not. No matter what, whatever they say publicly, next year they are playoffs or bust. They want to make the playoffs next year. They want to make it this year. They certainly want to make it next year. So if Quinn can't make superstars work and whatever they pad that roster with next year, and budding superstars, and continuously publicly say, "Oh, I wish I would have gotten this. I forgot to do this," and blah, blah, blah. What the fuck? Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dude. Like, you can't say that shit out loud. I wish I had done this. The reason why Zibanejad and Panarin get shut down by the Islanders all the time is because the Islanders have an absolutely deadly fourth line that they throw out there against them.
Yeah, for like the last 5 years, the same.
Last 5 years. What else do you expect? If you're rolling three lines, that's less hard. That's less easy to do. It's fucking simple math.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, Quinn, it'll certainly be not necessarily on the hot seat, but on a warm seat, I guess. I mean, if you can put it that way. So we'll see what happens next year. So the outlook of this podcast as we move forward, we're going to do a total season review with George Lake in a week or two, probably, whatever, sooner, later, whatever. And then during the Stanley Cup playoffs, we're not going to do any podcasts unless any Ranger news comes out. And then when NHL free agency opens up, we'll be right there for you guys reviewing all of that. But when the Rangers aren't playing, it's kind of tough to do anything, but we're going to try. You can also listen to our Strictly Hockey podcast, where we're going to be covering the entire NHL playoffs, the lead up, during it, after it, all of that good stuff. So Steve, Adam, and I will be there for that. Strictly Baseball is going to come soon. Now that it's summer, we could do a little bit more of it. Strictly Sports, we got to do a draft review, but we did a draft preview that's already up. And we also talked about Kosi Perry, quarterback from Miami, transferring to FAU, huge deal. CJ and I talked about that on that pod. And then Strictly Yankees, I've taken a little bit of time off, but felt a little good beating the Astros last night. So maybe we'll hop on one soon. So you can find all of those on YouTube. If you look it up, Strictly Sports Productions on YouTube in the search bar, go to the playlist sections on our channel. All 5 podcasts are separated in the playlist section for you to find. Super easy. And you can find them all on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at Strictly Sports P and on Facebook and Instagram at Strictly Sports Productions. For my dad, I am Jacob Brown, and we will see you next time.